Whew. Hey there. We all know the environmental and ethical reasons for following a plant-based diet, but what happens inside our bodies as we swap out animal proteins for more plant-based ones? I'm Adam KRUGER, and you may know me as the PlantX Vegalier, but I'm also a lifelong athlete. Join me as I speak with different members of the medical advisory board here at PlantX to figure out exactly what goes on inside your body as you follow a more plant-based diet. Welcome to Medically Speaking. You know, there's so many different people who believe that you can't get enough protein on a plant-based diet. And well, I've made it my mission to prove them wrong. On today's episode, I spoke about protein in a plant-based diet as well as intermittent fasting with registered dietitian and certified nutrition support clinician, Amy Gensel. Check it out.
Hi, my name is Amy Gensel. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm actually a certified nutrition support clinician. I do a lot of calculations. It's a lot of math. Calculating protein needs, carbohydrate needs, fat needs, vitamin needs.
Amy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Sure, glad to be back.
Yeah, no, it's always so much fun talking to you, and I know we've only had one conversation so far, but it's so enlightening to have you on here to talk about all these different things with respect to nutrition, because really when it comes to plant-based diets, we can speak from a medical perspective, and it's really, really enlightening to hear what goes on inside the body as far as, from the medical profession goes, but from a dietary perspective, right? You've studied exactly what nutrients, macro, micro, and other that the body needs to perform at its optimal capacity, right? So I want to talk about today about a plant-based diet and if it provides enough protein for us to stay fit and healthy. So I think there's a two-part question, because I do believe that the American perspective of protein is I think it's a bit misguided. We focus way too much on it, I believe, and I'd like you to weigh in on that. And then secondarily, I'd like you to talk to us about if we actually are getting enough protein to stay fit and healthy on a plant-based diet. So can we start with this fixation on protein?
Yeah. I don't know where some of these ideas started from, that we have to have massive amounts of protein. It's definitely important for your diet, but it's just one component, right? It's not the whole picture. And actually, overdoing it on protein is still extra calories. So you're still overdoing it, regardless of where you're getting those extra calories from. I think there's a misconception that if you overeat all of this protein, that it's fine, but if you overeat carbohydrates, oh no, that's dangerous. It's getting a balance of all of those macronutrients together, because our body needs them all to function properly.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I think a lot of people need a reminder of, because we've talked in other episodes or a different episode about fiber intake and and why that's so important for the body. And so today we're talking about protein, and I think it's important to understand that you have to have a nice balance, right? So what is it that why do you think people don't believe that they're getting enough protein on a plant-based diet to stay fit and healthy?
Yeah. I think part of it is because when we think about protein, we think about meat. That's what our brains we've been taught that our entire life. Meat is protein. But there are protein in many different fruits and vegetables. Obviously, fruits have a lot less, vegetables have a little more, and then your things like nuts, legumes, soy, peanuts, almonds, all of those types of foods have a little bit more protein in them. So you can get a balance as long as you're getting a wide variety.
Yeah, so I like this. Now we kind of touched on in a separate episode about the difference between your regular everyday human being and then athletes who are trying to perform at high performance with respect to protein, right? I want to get a little bit more granular in this and talk about our actual protein needs. So, for example, your regular everyday human, how much protein does someone actually need on a daily basis to stay fit and healthy?
Yeah, so there are a couple different recommendations. On the low end is 0.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. I usually estimate for a normal, healthy person, walking, talking, not hospitalized, where I spend most of my time, but a normal, healthy person, about 0.8 grams to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. A lot of times people will tell you need a gram per pound, which is not true. That's a lot of protein. But 1 gram per kilogram of body weight is completely sufficient for you to completely function, continue to build muscle. You can go a little higher, but overdoing it can also cause problems.
So if you weigh, let's say 100 pounds, right, which equates to roughly like 44 kilograms, 45 kilograms, something around there.
Sure.
You're looking at about 44, 45, 46 grams of protein a day, which is really easily achievable, right?
Sure. And the caveat comes in the elderly population. We usually say they actually need more, something like 70 to 80 grams, because their bodies are starting to break down. So it is a little more tricky in the elderly to get enough protein, because oftentimes their appetites are decreased as well. But for young folks, absolutely.
And the irony is that the elderly population don't really care so much about that anymore anyhow.
Yeah.
So then the question is, what does your regular standard diet look like for a healthy individual in a day? Can you break down, what you would recommend just for, your average human, obviously taking out the outliers of like, well, this person's deficient in XYZ, like just someone who's regularly healthy in a good place, they exercise regularly. What would you recommend? What would a day of eating look like, for example?
As far as meals go?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, really important getting a wide variety in each meal. So the proteins don't have to come all together, as we talked about. It doesn't have to be the complete protein, but getting a portion of your protein at however many meals you have. A typical 3 meal a day person would want to have some protein with breakfast, some with lunch, some with dinner. It doesn't have to be 100% equal. If you like having a bigger portion of meal at your lunch meal, great. But trying to get a little bit throughout your day is important, because it helps to slow down the digestion of your carbohydrates when you get fat and protein together. So you're not going to spike up your blood sugar and then crash, because I know that happens for a lot of people, is they'll eat something for breakfast and then by lunchtime they're really tired. It's important to get that fat and that protein in with the carbs. And then as long as you're doing that, you should be able to sustain yourself, build muscle, and like I said, trying to get it within each meal.
I love that. I think that makes perfect sense. And now looking at, obviously, if we look at someone who's more athletic, they're exercising every single day or they're competing, you would just say, hey, same kind of thing, just eat a little bit more, and maybe instead of 3 meals a day, have 6. Is that?
Sure. Add some snacks in. You can, make a smoothie, get some vegan yogurt and throw in some fruits, some avocado in there if you want to add some fat. Throw in some nuts if you want to have a snack. Have some, you could have like a nut butter with some fruit or veggie dip as a dip is an option. But yeah, trying to add some more in throughout the day, but completely possible.
So I have one more question, which is, and this is completely sort of unrelated to, the protein question and how if you're actually getting enough on a plant-based diet. But the question is, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting? Because that seems to be a thing right now where, people are doing this where they're only eating in a specific window of time. And do you think that this is beneficial for the body or not?
It's tricky. There's unfortunately not a lot of studies that show any sort of actual results, right? Unfortunately, this is a big problem with nutrition studies in general, is at the end of them, you will always see, but more studies need to be done. It's difficult because it's difficult to control all of the aspects of one's diet. In my opinion, and in the research that I've done, the reason people tend to see that it helps them lose weight is because they end up in a calorie reduction. So because they're only packing it in those few hours, they're not eating as much throughout the day. So if you're looking at their total calories and they're putting it in just a short period of time, well, what happens if you expand that out but keep the same amount of calories? The person is probably going to continue to maintain their weight or lose, just like they were doing with the intermittent fasting. And I think it's very person dependent. Some people seem to do better with it. Some people don't. So it's kind of a trial and error thing if it's something that you're looking into. The tricky parts come in if someone has like diabetes. It's not an exclusion, but you have to be more cautious because you could drop to have a low blood sugar. So it does have its positives and negatives, but there's really no scientific evidence that shows like this is working 100% of the time for you.
Good to know. This is, there's so many questions I want to ask you, and there's so many things that are completely off topic. But just to wrap up our complete protein situation, sorry, not complete protein, just to wrap up our situation here of getting enough protein to stay fit and healthy on a plant-based diet. I wanna just wrap up and say, and then I wanna have you chime in, of course, that of course you can get enough and more than you could possibly ever need on a plant-based diet. This whole idea that you absolutely need animal-based proteins to stay fit and healthy is debunked at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are actually professional athletes that are completely vegan and continue to build muscle. It's again, it might take a little more planning. You might have to, as you said, add some extra snacks throughout the day, and look at making sure you are getting enough nutrients and feeling full, which is pretty easy to do when you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. But yeah, it might take a little extra planning. It might take a couple extra snacks. But it's definitely possible to get adequate protein for muscle building, exercise, and like I said, even athletes can do it.
Yes, I agree. From my perspective, I'm someone who's extremely, extremely active. I have been plant-based forever, and I've never felt better. In fact, just a quick little anecdote for anybody watching right now. I went completely vegan in 2016, and in that 1 year saw more gains in the gym than I had in the previous 2 years combined. And that was, and I think Amy, actually, I want to ask because I have a feeling that this is due to the fact that I was really planning and actually counting what protein I was taking in, what carbs I was taking in. And I think because of that, I was getting actual proper nutrition, possibly for the first time in my life. And I think that might be what's attributed to the extra gains that I saw. I know obviously you can't say for certain because you didn't see what I was eating, but would you say that that's probably accurate or possibly accurate?
I mean, yeah, logically, that's where I would go, is that you were actually paying attention, not just like grabbing a quick sandwich and shoving it in and moving on. You were thinking, okay, today I want to make sure I'm getting enough protein, I'm getting enough fats, getting some, healthy fats like from walnuts or avocado, things like that. And so you were probably getting more balance than you were before.
Yeah, that's my guess, because I never had paid so much attention to what was going into my body as I had at that moment in time. And to this very day, I'm very calculated in what I'm putting in. I make sure to hit my macros, and I also make sure that I try to eat the rainbow. I like to try to eat as many colors as I possibly can. So again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today. I want to let everybody know, yes, you can 100 million% is not a thing, but it is today. Get enough protein on a plant-based diet to be fit, healthy, active, and really live a very happy life. So, like we always say, eat more plants, eat the rainbow, find that balance, and find health. Thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you learned something new here today, because I sure did. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments below, and we'll address them in a future episode. Until then, stay fit, stay healthy, and eat more plants. See you next time.